Eid Mubarak. You know, once in a while, the calendar gives us this incredible gift. The celebration of Eid lands on the most blessed day of the week, Friday. And on the surface, that feels like a double blessing, right? But it can also stir up a bit of confusion. So let's unpack this beautiful dilemma and get some real clarity.
So here's the big question. If you've prayed the Eid prayer in the morning, does that mean you get a pass on the Jumu'ah, the main congregational Friday prayer later that afternoon? That's the core issue we're going to tackle in this explainer, and we're going to do it by looking at the foundational sources for our guidance.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we have to start with the foundational ruling, and that's the position held by the vast majority of scholars throughout history. Think of this as our baseline, our clearest and safest starting point.
And where do we always begin? With the word of Allah Himself. This verse from the Quran isn't a suggestion. It's a direct, unambiguous command for believers. The Friday prayer is something we're explicitly told to hasten towards. This is our non-negotiable foundation. It's an obligation, plain and simple.
Okay, this slide really helps break down the legal weight of each prayer. On one side, you've got the Jumu'ah prayer. It's what's called fard ayan, a direct individual obligation. On the other side, the Eid prayer is generally classified as wajib, which is necessary, or sunnah, a highly recommended practice. You can already see a clear hierarchy forming here.
So, what exactly does fard ayn mean? Well, think of it like the 5 daily prayers. It's a personal, non-transferable duty. It's on your account. Nobody else can do it for you. You are individually responsible for it before God. That's the level of importance the Jumu'ah prayer holds.
And this all boils down to a really simple but profound principle in Islamic law. A lesser obligation can never cancel out a greater one. It just doesn't work that way. The fard, the obligatory act, always takes precedence.
So let's ask the most important question. What did the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, actually do? Well, we have a clear narration that on a day when Eid and Friday happened together, he led both prayers. And get this, he even recited the same specific chapters in both prayers. This is a huge detail because it shows they were two separate, distinct acts of worship. He wasn't swapping one for the other.
Now that practice of the Prophet forms the basis for what you see here, an overwhelming scholarly consensus. We're talking about the major schools of thought, the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi, and a major view in the Hanbali school. They all concluded that both prayers are required. This isn't some fringe opinion. This is the mainstream, rock-solid, established position. But you've probably heard a different take on this, and it's really important that we talk about it. So let's shift gears and explore the evidence behind the concession, the view that says, hey, maybe the Eid prayer is enough.
Okay, this is the main piece of evidence used to support that alternative view. It's a hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, reportedly said that since 2 Eids, that is the Eid festival and the Eid of Friday, have come together, the Eid prayer can be enough. But pay close attention to that last part. But we will pray Jumu'ah. That's a fascinating little clue, suggesting there's more to this story.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Was this a blanket permission for everyone, everywhere, no matter what? Or was it for a very specific group of people in a very specific situation? The answer here is the key that unlocks this whole issue.
All right, this is where it all clicks into place. When we put the evidence into its proper historical context, we can finally understand exactly who was being spoken to and why this concession was given in the first place.
Now check this out. We have this powerful historical account from the 3rd Caliph Usman. On a Friday that was also Eid, he stood up and gave permission for a specific group of people to head home instead of staying for Jumu'ah. And who was that group? He called them the people of Al-Awali. That name is everything.
So Al-Awali wasn't just a random name. It specifically referred to the small villages and little settlements that were located on the outskirts of the main city of Medina. These were people who had to travel in from the countryside for the big Eid prayer. And here it is. This is the light bulb moment. The people who were given the permission to skip Jumu'ah were people for whom Jumu'ah was not even obligatory in the first place. Because they were travelers from these outlying areas, they were already exempt. The concession wasn't for the people living in the city. It was an act of mercy for visitors who faced the hardship of a long journey back home. So, after looking at all the evidence, what does this all mean for you and me when Eid falls on a Friday? Let's boil it all down into a super clear, practical takeaway. Without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute best course of action is to just embrace the double blessing.
Attending both the Eid prayer and the Jumu'ah prayer is the path that is safest from a legal point of view, it's the surest way to follow the Prophet's direct example, and of course, it's the most rewarding.
Let's break this down into 4 simple points. 1. For anyone who lives locally, the safest and best path is to attend both prayers. 2. The imam of the mosque has a duty to the community to hold the Jumu'ah prayer no matter how many people show up. 3. That concession we talked about, it really only applies to people facing a genuine hardship, like those who have to travel a really long way just to get to the mosque. And 4, this is so important. Even if you have a valid excuse to miss Jumu'ah, you don't just skip prayer for the rest of the day. You are still required to pray the regular noon prayer, the Zohar prayer, at its proper time.
Now, we have to address a really common and, frankly, dangerous misunderstanding. There's an idea floating around that attending the Eid prayer means you can skip both Jumu'ah and Zohar. Let me be clear. This view has absolutely no basis in Islamic law. Scholars across the board reject it because it means dropping an obligatory prayer without any evidence at all.
And listen to this powerful, direct statement from the great scholar, Imam Abu Hanifa. He just frames it perfectly. He says you've got a sunnah prayer and a fard prayer on the same day. You can't just neglect one of them. It's such a crystal clear summary of the whole principle.
And this quote from the classical Hanafi texts just leaves zero room for ambiguity. The official position of this school of thought, which represents a massive portion of the world's Muslims, is clear and simple. It necessitates both. Full stop.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. How does understanding the why behind a ruling, not just the what, change your perspective? When you see the context, the principles, and the example of the Prophet, it can transform these religious practices from just rituals into something with much deeper meaning and a much stronger connection.